everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of the Overcoming Trauma video series. This project is grant funded by Recover Alaska, and together we are bringing you stories from local Alaskans who have overcome trauma, and they're showing up for us to share their stories of hope, of courage, and of resiliency. Today's guest is the amazing Ralph Sara. He is in recovery, he's a great musician, and he has a very popular podcast called The Anonymous Eskimo. So make sure to go check out his podcast and show him some love in the comments. It takes a lot of courage to share so vulnerably with all of us. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you can see all the amazing upcoming episodes we have for you. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am here today with Ralph Sara, and I'm so excited to be interviewing you. You interviewed me on your podcast and so many other incredible people. So first of all, just thank you for agreeing to talk with me today. And thank you for putting all that content out into the world. It's amazing.
Well, I appreciate you contacting me for an interview, and I appreciate the kind words. So, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a podcast, The Anonymous Eskimo, and I feel like it's very popular and just growing. You're putting out so much content. I think it's incredible. And I recently was talking about two people have reached out to me saying that they were thinking about being interviewed by you, and I told both of them that was one of my favorite interviews I've ever had. So you really create, yeah. And I've been interviewed quite a few times now, and I think for one, the fact that I was able to do the interview over the phone in my pajamas, that was great. But also, you just really made me feel like I had a safe, open space to share whatever was comfortable for me. And I think that says a lot about your character, that you can make people feel so comfortable to share really vulnerable parts of their life. So that's just a testament to you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, I tried to, at first, when I first did this podcast, I Googled everything I could Google. I watched videos on how to start a podcast. I watched what types of equipment to use. At first I was just using my phone, right? My iPhone through GarageBand. And one of the best pieces of advice was from a TED Talk. Somebody was explaining how to interview people. And they said the best way to interview people is just to shut the F up and let them talk,
Yeah.
because you have especially my first interviews were I had the tendency to try to step in, and I would be stepping all over their talking. And once I decided to just step back and try to, initiate some conversation with some questions and then just let them talk. And what's funny is sometimes even long silence, uncomfortable silence will bring stuff up, like if you don't even say anything, they'll have to, they feel like they need to say something,
Right. Oh yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's so great that you are doing so much research. And I found that too. Sometimes I might have learned the harder way than you, but just allowing that silence. And even, I've been doing life coaching for a long time. And that's another part of that, like active listening means I have to be okay with there being a pause. And sometimes the most incredible moments come after that slightly uncomfortable pause. And that's just so hard for us as humans to like the dead air. Oh my gosh. But
yeah. Especially if you have any radio experience or anything like that, like, oh no, dead air, gotta fill it.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. Yeah. And so when did you start the podcast?
Well, I was in treatment a couple of years ago. And that's when the pandemic started, was when I was in residential treatment at the Ernie Turner Treatment Center out there in Eklutna.
Yeah.
And, in treatment, a lot of people say, oh man, that's like vacation or whatever. You went to vacation because you don't have to work or anything like that.
Oh my God.
But they don't understand how much emotional, things that you're working on,
Yeah.
um, being away from family, being away from, and then the pandemic hit and we were isolated. Nobody could come in, nobody could come out, go out. You
Ooh.
know, it was just a select a couple people that worked there. But it gave us a lot of time to think and a lot of time to work on ourselves, you know. Of course, it went all Zoom towards the end, but while I was in there, I had a vision board that I decided to do, you know, with the pictures,
Yeah.
and of course, I had my family up there because I wanted to regain their um, you know, support and their love again because I messed that all up. I had my kids I wanted to reconnect with. I had my family, and then I had material things like a house, log house. I had a, a motorcycle up there. You know, it's funny because the last time I got in trouble was because I was driving under the influence on my Harley. So my
Ooh.
Harley got taken away. And of course I had a motorcycle up there. And then I drew a book cover because in the treatment, they ask you to like write your story down so you could present it towards the end of your stay there.
Mm.
And so I decided to do my story kind of like a book um, style, I guess. And when I was done with it, um, I got so much positive feedback from all the peer support team, all the, you know, the residents that were there, just everybody that listened to it saying, you know, you should write a book or whatever. So I I I drew a book cover, you know, with me at the time, you know, dressed in like a parka or something. I went there, but and it was the anonymous Eskimo, and of course I put New York Times bestseller in the, you know how they
Oh
have it
yeah.
on the cover. So I put that on there, and because people were giving me good feedback saying, you know, that was really good and you should do something with that. And that's when I did that. And at the time, I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. You know, that's just too huge for me right now or whatever. Thinking about it was a good dream to have. But then I started thinking of other things that I could do and to help people, you know, because I've never tried to help people in my all my other sobriety times that I've had. You know, I've tried AA before.
Mhm.
I've tried everything almost under the sun, you know, try to stay sober, white knuckling it, you know, just everything. But I've never tried to reach out, tell my story, or help other people, you know. And so I was deciding, you know, okay, maybe I could put like a paper out or something like that. But then somebody mentioned podcasts. And then once I was out, I Googled, you know, indigenous, Inuit, Yupik, all the different words, native recovery podcasts, you know,
Yeah.
and there was none out there I could find. There was episodes, you know, of other
Sure.
podcasts that were kind of focused on indigenous recovery and stuff like that, but I couldn't. And I said, why not? Why can't I do that? You know? And so I came up with a trailer at first, you know, kind of telling people how or what this podcast is about. And I uploaded that, and I didn't get any listeners or anything like that, you know, at first. But I went ahead and decided to put my story out, the one that I actually wrote in treatment.
Mm.
You know, I recorded it on my iPhone on GarageBand.
Yeah.
So I put that out. That was my first one because what I said was, how can I invite people on to tell their stories if I haven't told mine, you know?
Sure.
So that my story was the first one. And so after that, I had to learn how to interview, and that's how this podcast started. And it's been over a year and a half, I think. In July it'll be 2 years. So
Okay.
it's been pretty awesome. It's just like you said, it's been growing and growing. It's not, you know, huge by any means. You know, I think I get maybe like 160 to 200 downloads per episode, maybe. I don't know.
I think
At
that's
first it was
awesome.
really low, but I have no idea about the numbers, and that really doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
it does give you a little, like, I don't know,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
jump,
it gets a little
you know.
dopamine hit. Yeah.
Right. When you get those little things that say, hey, just like recently I got like 6,000 downloads or whatever, like,
I saw that.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. That encourages me,
No,
um
I think that's a huge deal. I really do. And because that's 6,000 times, or even if it was 600 or 60, those
yeah.
are all people that are being impacted by something that you created. I mean, I think that's huge. And especially since all of your content is meant to inspire and give hope to people. So I think that's a really big deal. And I just saw, they're doing like the Spotify wrapped things, and I was just looking at mine for my podcast. And one of the random things it said was that there are 6 people who listen to your podcast more than any other. And
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's 6 people, and that's not how many people listen to it, but just like that's their favorite one. To me,
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, like 6 whole people, like mine is their best, crazy, it's like I don't know who those people are, probably like my mom, but still, it's just any impact we can make in all these different ways. Like, what if one of those people, you change their life? What if 3 people out of 6,000 are sober because of your podcast? I mean, that
Yeah.
alone that's life changing. So I think celebrating those milestones is really, it's good.
Yeah, and I try to have as much, indigenous people on as I can, because there's no other podcast that really does that. Of course, I don't only limit it to indigenous people. I have everybody on there, all walks of life. So it's good because I get to show not only my way of staying sober, which is, holding myself accountable with this podcast and, sober support and all the other little coping mechanisms that I've learned, but show how other people are doing it, kind of what they went through. And maybe some people out there that are struggling can get some kind of, they can relate to the other people's story or some people's story and say, hey, that's what I'm going through. And maybe I could try this or what they tried. And there's just so many people out there that can tell their stories and share and, inspire hope in others. And
Mhm.
that's all we can hope for. And hopefully I'm being able to, you know, have people do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's hear more about your story. So here you are today. You said you were in treatment about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So can you share more about you said also that you've been in and out of AA, you've tried different things over the years. So
Uh-huh.
what did it look like before leading up to where you are in your journey now?
Well, I've always had a problem with alcohol. I've been in 2 other residential treatments. Ernie Turner, before, when it was out by the Native Hospital.
Mhm.
I went through there and I walked out after a month or so. And then I was in the Salvation Army residential treatment center too. And I walked out of that one as well.
Mhm.
It, and I thought about it, and then I realized that I was doing it for other people. I wasn't doing it for myself. Just so I can get people off my backs and show people, hey, look, I'm going through this. So, I'm going to be better. I'm going to do better. Um, at the whole time I was, thinking about the next drink, of course. But I've had time of sobriety, months, here and there. But I've always fell off the wagon, drank. And when I drink, I'm a binge drinker. So I'll be gone for days, weeks at a time, once I have that one drink. But I realized that it was the trauma that I've been through, keeping it all in, holding it all in, not having an avenue of release, healthy release. Um, Not until I went into this last treatment where I actually decided to try and work with the counselor that I've had, and she's awesome. Her name is Bex Jacobs. I always say her name. She can't talk to me because there's this weird two-year rule thing,
Oh,
so I can't, she can't talk to me or contact, but I always say her name because she is so awesome. She helped me out so much in there, you
wow.
know but I opened up, and I told her things that I've never told anybody before, and a lot of that is the trauma that we've been through that we hold in. And especially like native men or native people, in general, they're taught, you have to be this strong person, stoic, strong person, put this face on that you're a strong person and that nothing hurts you, you can't cry. And men in general too, you can't cry, and you can't tell people how you're feeling or what's bothering you or what has bothered you. And a lot of people like myself were just medicating all those emotions, trying to get them away so you don't feel them, medicating, self-medicating, and trying to shush those emotions that are inside of you. Not until you get them out and talk to somebody, that I started to heal. um, I grew up in Bethel, Alaska, and out there, I grew up on a street called Mission Road, and I could probably count the whole road almost, was affected by alcoholism
Mm,
or alcohol in general. Bethel is was a damp community when I lived there, which means there was no liquor stores or bars, um, but you can import alcohol from ordering it from Anchorage or wherever.
okay.
So there's a lot of bootleggers out there, and you can order your own. I'm not sure what it is right now. They did try liquor stores for a little while, but I think they closed down.
Mm,
I think there's a restaurant there that sells beer and like wine. Um, but at that time, growing up, almost all the neighbors were affected by alcohol. My next door neighbor, that whole family almost perished from some type of alcohol related,
mm,
either drinking too much, suicide, it was just sad.
yeah.
And so I grew up around that. That was my normal everyday life, of course it was in my family too. And I kept all of that in, there's a great essay, or it's a little book by Harold Napoleon called Yu Yarok, The Way of the Human Being. And I read that way back when. It talks about, generational trauma for Native people, both from when, white people came into the land, and also they called it the Great Death. It was the Spanish influenza, when just a whole bunch of population perished from that. Um, and the trauma that was passed down from all of the generations, it lives within all of us. And um, not only your trauma as well, but I think trauma has a lot to deal with a lot of people, how they abuse drugs or alcohol. And I think that was my path. And I've had it. I've had issues with alcohol my whole life, but I've tried and tried over and over again, just like I said, different ways. I've tried AA. I've tried, traditional ways of coping with it, cold turkey, just everything.
Yeah.
But not until this last treatment that I went through that I decided to work on myself and do it for myself, that it really mattered. Um,
What do you
but
think was maybe different from this last time around than before?
I was they say every time you drink, even when you stop, every time you drink, it like builds. It doesn't start from the bottom again.
Sure.
So all of the times I had a bottom before, it got worse and worse. And I lost everything. I've pawned thousands of dollars of music gear because I'm a musician like you.
Right. Yeah.
I found thousands and thousands of dollars of music gear, guns, stuff like that. I've lost everything. Worst is my family, um, my children, my jobs. I work as a dental assistant now.
Oh,
That's my day job. I work for a clinic here that's so awesome. They took me back 3 times.
wow.
All 3 times I just stopped showing up because I was on a binge and I was let go. But I've lost so much things in my life that I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep losing it. The last thing I'm going to lose is my life.
Yeah.
And that last drunk I had, it was in the wintertime, and I had known of a homeless shelter that people used, and I stayed there in the homeless. It was a tent. And I was just so freaking cold that
Oh,
I walked back to my fiance now. We've been together for over 20 years. We have
oh,
2 children
wow.
together, but this last Christmas, actually, I proposed to her, and we're
Woo.
waiting to, get our own place and get married in there. That's what she wants to do. But I walked back here to her house, and I just with on my knees almost, I knocked on the door, and of course she let me in. My snow pants were all frozen, and I was just, I could have died out there.
Yeah.
So I called up CITC, and I had to jump through tons of hoops to be, on the list to go into treatment. But I did them all.
Mm.
And they told me, okay, this is, you either have Medicaid or you pay $30,000 or whatever the crazy amount was, right?
Yeah.
So I applied for Medicaid, and I had a job before at this dental clinic that I'm working at now. Um, so at first I was denied, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Um, so I called him, and I set up a meeting to go and talk to him in person. And I explained my position, that I'm not working anymore. And, I'm trying to do this so I could get into treatment or whatever. And they approved me. So it helps if you try, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I jumped through all the hoops that I needed to jump through to get into treatment. And that was the last time. Um, it was January of 2019, I believe, or December of 2019. I'm
Okay.
really bad with dates.
Do you know
There's a
your
part.
sobriety date?
Oh yeah, January. I have it right here on my thing.
Oh,
Uh,
awesome.
it's in Roman numerals. It has my name, and it has January 19th, 2019. So, or 2020. Sorry. Um, but is that right?
Well, that means you're celebrating coming up here soon. So that's exciting. Thank you for sharing all of this. And I think that a lot of us in recovery have gone through the trying 100 different ways to get sober, get clean, prove to everyone around us that it's going to be okay. And I do believe that all of those, like, I don't know if they're baby steps, failures, I don't know what to call them, but I think all those moments are still planting seeds. I think that's still getting us closer to that goal of actually changing our lives. It just can take a while. And like you said, it gets to that point where you're like, okay, I either have lost everything or I'm about to, or either way, I'm going to die. And, that's where I was like, how many times can I like almost die before I just do? And that's how serious it is. And what you were talking about with each time we go back or relapse, we don't go back to square one. We go back to usually the worst place we were at before. And I have seen a lot of people pass away from relapsing because they couldn't handle it. So it's just, we can laugh and be happy that we're at the place we are today and be joyful, but it's really serious out there when we're in those places, and it's dark and it's so lonely and scary. And so I think that, by sharing our stories and other people's stories, we're helping so many other people know that they're not alone. And I don't know about you, but for me, I felt very alone. And I thought like a lot of my using was by myself. And I would have the part of the night where I'd party with other people, but I was drinking before that and after that. And I don't think they were, and
Mm.
it was just that feeling of like, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why can't I stop? I can't tell anyone because they don't seem to be this way. And so even like 12-step meetings and groups, I think are so powerful, especially in the beginning, to walk into a room full of people or go on Zoom to a room full of people online, and everyone has the same brain. There's no story I can tell that that group of people will judge or shame or not understand. And I think that is really, really powerful. So,
Yeah, definitely. When people hear other people's story, that they're not alone, and just like you said, I was so isolated when I drank, and especially when I decided either ran out of booze or beer or whatever I was drinking. And the weeks after, I shut myself into my room. I wouldn't even go out. I wouldn't eat. I wouldn't do
oh,
nothing. I wouldn't shower. How disgusting is that? But self-care went out the window. I
yeah.
was just I was so ashamed afterwards,
Mm,
so I isolated for myself. That was some kind of self-preservation. Myself was like, I don't want to see anything, I don't want to do anything. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck I'm gonna do. And then it took forever for me to act, for even to get up and brush my teeth. It took all that I had, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I heard somewhere, um somebody described recovery is connection. It's the connection that we can make. And unfortunately, a lot of people that relapse have bad connections. Have they go back to the um things that they were doing before, the people that they were
Right.
being with. I
Yeah.
see a lot of posts online of people that I know that are trying to stay sober, have a better life, go back to other people, that significant others or whatnot, or whoever,
Yeah.
found me, that it's hard. You have to have sober support no matter what. If I didn't have April, who is my fiance, she's so supportive,
Mm,
her, my family, all they wanted me to do is to have a better life, because they saw me at my lowest,
yeah.
and they encouraged me. And if I need to speak to somebody, I'll call peer support, because they were awesome. I'm so glad they have peer support now. That was another big thing in treatment, because before, the other treatments, they had no peer support. Everybody there had a piece of paper saying that they could fix you or whatever. But
Gotcha. Hmm.
it was so much better to talk to somebody that has been through, some sort of pain that you've been through, um,
Yeah.
and that
Absolutely.
they're actively in recovery, and you could really definitely talk to them, one on one. I love that they have peer support now, and that's so huge for the treatment centers nowadays. But
Yeah.
just reaching out and talking, connection with sober support is key. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That peer support is huge. And I just started a peer support group for STAR, which is the Rape Crisis Center here in Alaska. And because I thought there's so much ongoing healing that happens after trauma, and having someone who has been there, it's just a much different feeling than having someone who read about you in a textbook. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, thank you. I'm sure you're doing this job because you're a good person, but like, you don't know me. It's, it's just
You don't know what I've been through. How
yeah,
dare you?
exactly. And so having someone that's like, whatever story I have, they can top it. I'm like, okay, well, you get it. So, and somehow you're here today. One of my biggest mentors in sobriety, and we're still really good friends. And she, I think, just celebrated 25 years. And she was like Mrs. Harley Davidson and also a yoga teacher that like looks like a mermaid, and I'm just like, whoa, like whatever you're doing, like tell me how, because this is beautiful. And her past is insane, so it's like,
Mhm.
I love that. I love the peer support. It's super impactful. And so you were talking about generational healing and generational trauma and all of that. And I'm glad you brought that up. I know for Indigenous culture, and I just think for all of us with our DNA and our family, and some people believe that we choose our family possibly to help heal that. Other people think that's crazy, and that's fine. No matter what we believe, like I personally definitely see myself as like here to break generational trauma and break cycles, and that helps me a lot to stay on my path. And I feel like the more healing I do, the more that's healing my daughter, my mother, my grandmother, on and on. And I think healing is really hard. And like you were saying, being at treatment, people don't get it. That was 100 times harder than going to work. It takes so much courage to unravel parts of us that we've been trying to hide from, for so long. So uh, I'd love to, we'll make sure to get the name of that book that you mentioned and all the other
Mhm.
resources to share with everyone too, because that's really interesting. So yeah, I'm all about the breaking cycles, and you can be thinking about that with your kids and your legacy.
Yeah, and breaking those cycles, it'll take time. I mean, just like now, I have people, loved ones that I've hurt, that it's gonna take a lot of time for them to be able to, accept me for who I am right now, because I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
What did I hear? Somebody says it takes 10 times the amount of time of being sober than I forget how it goes, but
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you understand what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say?
I've heard that of like going to treatment 7 times before it sticks or something. And it's like,
or just being a walking amend to others, so you could show
mm,
you know that you're a changed person, or just living a better life, and it takes time, and it takes you showing them that that you could be trusted again. You're not going to hurt them.
yeah, I think those living amends are the most powerful ones. And again, they are hard because they take that patience with yourself and just kind of hoping that people will forgive you. And it sounds like you're surrounded by a lot of support. And I think that's really incredible with work and with your family, all clearly trusting in the potential of who you are and seeing your
Yeah.
heart. I'm sure that, and that's the thing. It's like people close to us, they've seen our heart year after year. They know like this isn't who this person is at their core. And if they can just get that help, like things could be
Mhm.
okay. And so I just think it's beautiful that, how does it feel being a year, 2 years of not feeling shame? I mean,
Mm,
not having to wake up and apologize to someone every morning.
yeah. Or wondering what you did, or
Yeah.
what kind of craziness that you caused, or hurt that you caused.
Yeah.
uh and it took me a bunch of times, over and over, and I'm still young in my sobriety this time around. I'm still super young, but I created this thing that'll help keep me accountable. And so I hope and I pray that it's going to go on for a very long time. And,
Yeah.
and this last time of sobriety, I've had a lot of things happen that are so awesome and good. So it can happen, things do get better. But does that say that you're put on a pedestal, and you're this great thing that happened just because you're sober now? No. Life happens, like I say in all my podcast episodes or anything like that. It'll come up all the time. you know you're not you are changed, but you're not put on a pedestal saying you're so because you're sober. You're not better than anybody else. Life happens.
Yeah.
um there's this line that I always say, it's recovery is not linear, it's up and down. You have
Mhm.
your ups and you have your downs. It's just, you have to deal with them differently now. You're not going to suppress your emotions and your feelings with alcohol or drugs. You're going to
Yeah.
have to learn to navigate through all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I've had people over the years say, like, oh, it's just easy for you, or you're just lucky, or you must not drink because you're healthy, and I'm like, whoa, I wish any of those were true. But, I get pretty frustrated sometimes, though, with, that, because it's like, no, it's not luck. It's not easy. And it can be really, really tough. I'm just committed this time, and like you, I had a lot of false starts, but it's really important to me, and it takes a lot of work, and there have been some pretty intense things that have happened in my life that in the past I know I would have drank, and now I have a lot of tools, I have a lot of people I can reach out to, and I have a lot of super uncomfortable moments, but I am allowing that because I know that that's going to be better than me escaping. And so also, like what you're talking about, like having this more public persona, and sharing, recovering out loud, like I think that's not for
Mm.
everyone. For some people, the anonymity and the not sharing it, that's like their journey. I think for some of us, recovering out loud is ours, and I don't think one's right or wrong. But I will say, for me, because I'm so, I talk about it a lot and on video and podcasts and this and that, um, it does keep me accountable in another way. And even like kind of in our small town, I think about like, because I have some friends and family that drink, and that's fine, and it's not a huge deal to me. But once in a while they'll be like, oh, I'm just gonna stop by the liquor store to like pick up some wine or something, come with me, or will you stop and get me something? And I'm like, no. And the first thought I get is, it's not even about me craving it or thinking I'll drink, it's about me thinking someone in this town who's like, oh, recovery queen
Oh,
Blake, you want to shut up about that? Now I saw
yeah.
her, like she's at the liquor store, and I'm like,
Get the cell
oh.
phone out. Ching, ching.
Yeah, yeah, right, paparazzi.
That's
Uh,
totally true. Yeah.
but for me, and in reality, I don't think people care that much what I'm doing, but it helps me, stay in like the lane I want to be in, and have some really clear boundaries with the people in my life too, that it's like, you can do what you want to do and I'm not going to judge that, but here are my boundaries, and that's not for
Mhm.
me, so yeah, so I think
Ba-
that's good.
Boundaries are definitely important to set. Not only like day-to-day boundaries, but boundaries from people or things that you did in the past. You have to
Oh
be
yeah.
careful. It just takes one time. Are you talking about liquor stores? I could remember how liquor stores smelled, you know?
Wow, yeah.
I used to go to the liquor store at 10 o'clock a.m. when they opened, shaking,
Oh
just so
yeah.
I can get that relief that I was seeking, because binging, you just keep going and going, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I'm
But
so glad you're not experiencing that right now.
oh yeah, man, it was terrible this last time. I think it was over a week of recovering, hangover, just and there comes that time when your mental health is not good,
Oh yeah.
I mean, just like I was supposed to have an interview with you a couple weeks ago, and I reached out and said to you, right now my mental health is not the best. I don't think I'm up for being on a podcast right now. I want to do stuff that makes my mental health better, and so I went to go play music that night.
Nice. That's perfect. Well, and yeah, and I really appreciated you telling me that. And that showed me that you really care about yourself. And I think that's huge, that you're not going to put yourself in a situation that's going to make things harder for you, and that you do know like what self-care you needed, what was going to be good for you. And the fact that you expressed it in that way too and said that to me is like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, I think you're giving men permission to talk about mental health. And I think that's a really big deal. And I'm so glad that we're moving in that direction just as a society where it's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to say that you're depressed or you're anxious or you're medicated or you're not, or you're doing, this and that ways to heal. Like this wasn't a conversation like this 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so I think that's one of the great things about the internet and podcasts and people who are just courageous enough to be vulnerable and share the real stuff. So I appreciate that about you.
Oh yeah, definitely. It took strides, I tell you, breaking out of that that yuppic stoic man I'm supposed to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't make you softer. It doesn't make you, it makes a better person, I believe, I think.
Absolutely. Really quick, I keep looking at your shirt. I love it. For those of you who are listening and not watching us, Ralph is wearing a t-shirt that it looks like the North Face logo, but it says not shit-faced.
Yeah, I put it on just for you today.
It took me like 10 minutes to even notice. And I'm like, wait, what?
April got that for me. She got it for I think she does this like 6 month, 9 month. Hey,
Oh, good.
little gifts here and there. She got me this, so that's shows so much support to me. It's just amazing,
It really is.
And that was one of my, I thought that was so awesome.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Is it backwards on your
No.
screen?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today and sharing all of this. I think it's amazing. So just to wrap things up, what's a message you would have for someone who is you a few steps back? Think of yourself in a place where you're really struggling and trying to figure out how to get out of that space. What message would you have?
Man, you have to be willing to stop and want a better life. If you're at the end or if you're struggling and don't know where to go, all you have to do is ask somebody, talk to somebody. You are not alone, just like everybody says, you are not alone. We've been through this. We know where you're at. It may be a different situation, but you can help other people. You can live a better life. You can provide a better life if you have children. You can, have a productive employment, career, whatever you want, whatever you're wanting, it can happen. You just have to make the first step and be willing to reach out to others, no matter how hard that is. If you feel shame, it's all that shame will dissolve once you get a little bit of help. Shame does not go away, but there's ways to deal with it. If you feel it, you can dissolve a lot of that, and just reach out. Don't give up. If you're falling over and over again like I did, keep picking yourself up, dusting yourself off. Keep doing it. Reach out.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Ralph. I just really appreciate you taking the time. And I can't wait for everyone to hear your story now.